This is the BODAR Blast by the USS Decatur, with your host, Lt.j.g Daniel Ehrlich. All views expressed on this show are not those of the United States Navy and made by the individuals who are on the show. All music used is used with the permission of the songwriter or is royalty-free. This is a feature production of the USS Decatur and is made free to use and free for all the families and supporters of the USS Decatur DDG-73. Old and daring.
And welcome to the BODAR Blast. I'm Lt.j.g Daniel Ehrlich, live from the USS Decatur. It's good to be back on the podcast again. It's been a little while since we last talked, so it's good to catch up, right? So on to episode 12 today, and I'm very happy to continue on with this project. It went from a crazy idea last year to now we're 12 episodes in, and we've got a lot of you listeners, families, everybody like that, back at home listening. Even though we're in port now, it still is great to have a great supporter base, and you get to find out what we do on a daily basis. So a little bit of what we've done over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, everybody's been able to take some leave. I know I was able to take some leave, and it was well-deserved. I think everybody got some time to be with family, got some time to be alone. And one of the things that they discussed during reintegration training that I think was important is, even though spending time with family is great, and it was great to see family again, getting that time by yourself alone, there's almost no privacy on the ship. If you live down in a berthing, which a lot of us do, then you've got at least 15 other people down there with you. Really the only privacy you have is maybe your rack, and even then somebody can swing open the curtains whenever they want to ask you at 2 a.m. to go write an email, which has happened to me before. And it's one of those, it's part of the job, and the lack of privacy is unfortunately one of the symptoms of the job. But it is it's wonderful getting back and reintegrating and getting the opportunity to get some time by yourself, breathe, relax a little bit, eat foods that you enjoy, see people that you want to be around, and that's why this post-deployment leave is so important for everybody that was on deployment. So everybody got at least 2 weeks of leave, and then we also had a maintenance period going on at the same time. So for those of you that have not been on board a Navy ship during a maintenance period, scaffolding up everywhere, contractors all over the place, tape everywhere, hoses everywhere, because the beginning parts of it is the contractors will come on. This stuff is contracted out years in advance, or at least a year in advance. The longer ones, like the one that Decatur was in when we were in dry dock a couple years back, those are scheduled out years in advance. But the shorter ones like this one, can be a year in advance, because over time maintenance piles up and things need to be fixed, and sometimes you can't schedule it for right now, and you need an outside entity to come in, whether it be our friendly neighbors over at Southwest Regional Maintenance Center, which is active duty personnel that are technical experts in their field that come over and are technical representatives and help assist our personnel in getting things fixed. Or it could be people from what we call depot level, which is mainly outside civilian contractors, companies coming in to fix things, or technical expert companies coming in to look at things. So that's how the maintenance period kind of goes, where first they come in, they have to set up all of the services, because we're not going to have all of the services all of the hotel services, as we call them, that we normally have in port. Low pressure air and lighting and stuff like that, water in some places. So they will come in, bring hoses in to be able to pump in off ship air or water or other material so that they can get the job done. And we get constantly swarmed by maintenance personnel, and that happens for about 3 to 4 weeks. And every day, it's kind of a battle of making sure that quality assurance is done correctly, and making sure that we are upholding the highest standards of maintenance for our ship. Our crew, our sailors, have undeniable pride for this ship. So making sure that the work done by an outside entity is the correct thing that's being done, and unfortunately sometimes calling people out on it, and making sure that we are getting the highest quality work is important. And so every sailor plays a role in it, whether they're working hands-on with the technical representatives, or whether they're coordinating mechanical assistants or technical assistants, or whether they're working with the contractors to coordinate how efforts are going. Every day there's a production meeting of what the progress is, how goes it. And some days are better than others, but in the end, Decatur got through it. We got some much needed maintenance done, and that's important for the ship, and making sure that the command philosophy of Commander Furtado right now is that we are very much a ship in sustainment, and so we can be that ship that can go out and do a mission whenever they need us to. So being mechanically ready for that is a very important facet of being that sustainment ship. So I think that we did a great job in coordinating this and coordinating efforts. This was one of the cleaner, what we call CMAV, continuous maintenance availability, that I've been a part of personally on this ship. So it was very helpful, and personally some of my systems got fixed up, so that's the important part of that. So we also had outside visits from other people as well. So in fact, we had the director of Naval Sea Systems Command Directorate 09, which is safety systems basically. Miss Shauna McCreary and her team actually did a visit on board earlier in August, and got to tour a lot of our ordnance spaces, see how our 5-inch gun operates. Miss McCreary, if you are listening, it was a pleasure having you on board and your team on board, and we hope that we showed you the surface side of things, because Miss McCreary doesn't work as much with shipboard systems as she does with other systems, so getting to see the surface side of things, especially the Swiss Army knife that is a destroyer in the Navy, especially USS Decatur, being able to fulfill so many different types of missions, but also the expertise of our sailors, your sailors on board. She was incredibly impressed the day that she was here, at least of the tour and the equipment, but not only just the equipment, the people operating the equipment. And that's the most important part of that, is you can't run a warship with just a warship. It's the people that make the things go. So getting hands-on demonstrations and seeing how we store ordnance, how our safety systems, the tons and tons of layers of safety requirements and rules that we follow to make sure that no one gets hurt, we're properly storing things, and that we are making sure that if we do need to deliver ordnance, it's going to be downrange or off ship if we're offloading. So it was a pleasure to have NAVC-09 come on board and tour the ship, and we hope that you really enjoyed our daring raiders and their presentations to you around the ship. Otherwise, we've had a lot of people leaving as well. It's that post-deployment flip. Everybody is leaving now after deployment, and soon yours truly will be leaving as well. But it has been a pleasure to serve with everybody that has left recently, a bunch of junior officers, sailors from all over the ship. To those of you that did leave, best of luck in your future travels, and to your future endeavors in the Navy. And as everybody says, and it is very true, it's a small Navy, so we will probably cross paths again. And some people have spent 5 years at least on Decatur, So a change of scenery is important, and it's good to move around and see new things. So unfortunately, that flip has to happen. Everybody is moving on to bigger things after being out at sea. That normally the turnover rate of people leaving and coming in is usually spread out throughout the process, but because we were gone so long, a lot of people were backlogged for either leaving or stayed until the end of deployment. So we lost a lot of people, gained a lot of people at the same time. So a lot of fresh faces too. So we've had a lot of junior sailors come on board, some new junior officers as well. So we've got a lot of fresh faces, and Decatur is about to start the cycle all over again. So it's really awesome, especially for me, having been here a couple years now, seeing the ship go through the entire cycle in my time here. While my time is about to come to a close, it's been awesome to witness us coming out of the dry dock and going into the basic phase, and then the advanced phase, and then onto the deployment. And so seeing it come full circle, and now seeing all these new faces, and me being the older person here, it's you take a moment of pause, because you always remember the first day you came on board, and how, especially as a junior officer, how wide-eyed you were and not knowing what you were going to do or where you were going. And now the ship is very much home to me. I've been here for over 2 years, and moving on is going to be tough, because this is kind of it's been my first long-term command and the only command I've known so far. So I think that's the same for a lot of people that are leaving, or especially the people coming in. You'll get used to Decatur, and then you eventually leave. But we've been having a lot of award ceremonies. Commander Furtado has been awarding a lot of people Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals for their excellent service on board, especially those that made it through deployment. 7 months is a long time. So that has been what has been going on in the last few weeks that we've been gone, getting back into the import routine. And as a lot of you are aware, our second leave period was for a home port shift. So I'll talk about that more after our interview. But our interview today is with Fire Controlman Aegis, First Class Dante Hall. He is just a renaissance man of a person. I'm so excited I was able to interview him. It was funny, I was just walking through the POA, I was like, FCA 1 would be excellent to talk to in an interview, and I asked him, and he's like, sure, because we have some great conversations during watch, and you get to hear some of those now on the podcast. So without waiting much longer, our interview of the week, it's going to be FCA 1 Hall. And we are here with FCA 1, so Fire Controlman Aegis, First Class Dante Hall. Thank you for joining me tonight, FCA 1. First time we've kind of done this not underway, so thank you for joining me in a special import version of the podcast. And like I told you before we started recording, like when I thought FCAs to bring on to this podcast, I was like, FCA 1 Smalls, but you know, he gets the limelight a lot. We'll eventually tell his story, but like FCA 1 Hall, you know, he's the guy that everybody loves, but has not gotten loved much on our social media, and I think people need to hear your story too. So, starting with your story, what do you do on board? What's your job, and then what's kind of the job of of an FCA?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a very big honor to me. The job of an FCA is we're sort of the middle between a GM and an ET. We're sort of a newer rate, and they threw an A on the end. I'm not a large fan of them changing it, but we're in charge of the more technical weapon systems. So we're a little bit more computerized than a gunner's mate, but generally speaking, we still deal with fire control weapons. Mm-hmm. And my specific job is I'm a CFLPO, so I'm overall in charge of CF. So what's going on with maintenance, what's going on with personnel, and I answer directly to Chief Petty Officer Affairs. So,
nice.
Not too interesting, I'm sure that there's a lot of other jobs that are going to be jumping out of planes and swimming in the ocean, but I specifically work on radars. That's my background, and now I just overall work on the fire control, the Aegis fire control for the ship.
Nice. So, starting at LPO, so what's it like being a leading petty officer? What are some kind of your duties? And, I mean, does it ever get bothersome over time?
Okay, let me be honest, because there's no reason for me to come in here and not be candid. I would be lying if I didn't say it was bothersome, but it's very rewarding. Like in the Navy, I've gotten a couple awards here and there. I've gotten a few pats on the back. So you kind of have to search for purpose in other ways, and just this is kind of cliche, and it's really not a Navy answer, but it's the truth that all of the day-to-day things that are annoying, just dealing with humans in general, everybody's going to make mistakes, and there's going to be little bumps that are going to annoy you, but there's nothing more rewarding than seeing your sailors glow up. They'll have a certain attitude or a certain issue or a certain problem, and I found in my own individual life and in my career by extension that nobody really joined the Navy to fail, or nobody does anything with the intention to fail. So there's usually just some piece missing with in dealing with humans in general. And if you can find that piece, you can redirect. And sometimes I'm not the piece, and often, I won't say often, but possibly I might be the problem if I'm going to be completely honest. But for those times that you're the right answer, and they've ran their heads in the wall, but you're just the right answer for that person, and you course correct them to do something good. I get a lot from that. So to answer your question without being overly talkative on it, absolutely, it's frustrating sometimes. It sort of feels like you're gonna get the blame from the bottom and the top, and it just kind of goes with the territory. But it's what I get from it. Dealing with my mini me's, as I call them, it far overshadows any of the negatives that come with it.
Yeah. So you talked. I mean, the way that you summarize that, it is tedious at times, and leadership is always tedious. I mean, I feel you every day. Like, there's some days I walk off the ship and I'm like, I hate this. Because you're the administrative side. You're the branch between the administrative side and the guys, and the technicians. And so, getting that taste of starting to feel leadership and the burden of it is tough sometimes. So I feel you. But it really does sound like you found that purpose. How do you? You have such a great mentality on this ship, if I may say so.
I appreciate it.
We've stood a lot of watch together. I talk about this on the podcast a lot, and I talk with people that I've stood with watch with, because you learn a lot about those people.
Right.
But we stood a lot of watch together. We've had some great conversations, and what really strikes me with you, and others have noticed too, is just how positive you always are, and how you find purpose in everything that you do. And it's striking because, I don't think anybody's ever seen you get mad, or at least I don't think I have. How do you find purpose every day in doing what you do? And then what drives you, and what drives that positivity in you?
Okay, that's a big question. So I'm going to unpack it one thing at a time. So being positive, I wish I had a secret. And I wish I could, say I was so evolved and I've really figured everything out. But through, I've had things not go my way, in my life at times, and I've had a couple bumps in the road. So really, this is just not my experience day to day, and my experience in the Navy so far is just not generally big enough to worry about. And you can find like something that I've heard talking to my grandparents and to people who've experienced life in their own ways, is that like if you go through the day, most of the day is kind of neutral. Like the last 4 or 5 hours, nothing has happened to make me extremely happy or extremely sad. It's just regular. And I would say, taking the other part of that pie, most of the rest of it is pretty positive. So let's just, to throw a number on it and to simplify it, let's just say 90%, or the other 40% is positive. So now within that last little 10%, how much of that is really, really, really negative? Like some things might be annoying, something might be difficult, something might, there's a lot of ways to describe it, but when you look at your day, probably 20 minutes of it is bad. And if you have the mindset to look at those 20 minutes and make that your day, then you just ruined the whole 24 hours for 20 minutes. So my day-to-day experience really isn't that bad. So why would I be mad about it, And dealing with people, if I come and I have a positive attitude, it lets the people that I deal with have a more positive attitude. And then that kind of snowballs, because one, you're going to have people who are going to be more open and more willing to talk to you more, and dealing with you is going to be a simpler process. So they're willing to do it. So now they're not going to be in bad spirit and I'm not a part of their 20 minute of bad day. Hopefully I'm not a part of many people's 20 minutes of their bad day. So now they're not going to do things to frustrate me. So now that's even minimizing the amount of negative interactions that I have even more. So to summarize, the Navy is really not that bad. And if I look at all of the things that it's given me and compare that to the things that it's taken away, it just seems as if, like, what would I have to complain about? Everything could always be better, but it's pretty solid. So that's why I'm fairly happy and finding purpose. Another different answer. Hopefully to your listening audience and to you, I hope you guys can understand that my answers probably aren't going to be normal answers. So, maybe a different FCA will give you the more cookie cutter answers. But for me, finding purpose, I don't identify myself. Like, I was lucky in that, I had a life before the Navy. And not to say that, everybody had a life before the Navy, but I went to college, I did a bunch of things before I joined, and I think that shaped my personality to look at the Navy more as, I don't see that as my life, the Navy. Like, I look at it as something that I approach. I try to do my best. I try to be as good to people as I can. I try to be as pleasant and positive as I can. But when it comes down to it, the Navy's not my life. Like, that's not my purpose. So I always just wanted to be, through some issues and, some things. As a child, I was always really motivated to just be financially good or to achieve things or to leave an impact, like have people remember me. And that's sort of my purpose. And living that purpose is what I'm aiming for. So whatever happens within the Navy is just an extension of me trying to pursue my goals of just, being successful. I want my family to be successful. I want my children, hopefully I get some children here soon, but I want them to have, I want to make a lasting impact in which I can have generations down the road say, hey, like, my great-grandfather did this. Or people that I met, if you go to another ship or you meet somebody who met me, they could be like, wow, that guy was, insert whatever word it is, because I can't necessarily say that they'll say I'm great or they'll say I'm bad, but whatever it is, I want to be impactful. So that's sort of my purpose, and by extension, that's my Navy purpose. And I think there's another question in there, but I forgot it. I kind of started to ramble.
Oh, no. Your answer is amazing because, your positive attitude it's great. I find trouble in myself always trying to not let the 20 minutes a day that upset you or the people that sometimes you interact with upset you. And, it's hard. Sometimes it can take over your day. And the way that you have the mental ability to just be like, you know what? I'm not going to let that 20 minutes bug me. I'm just going to move on. is, I mean, everybody should have that mentality, and I think that we would all be a lot more positive with each other. Because I mean, I agree with you. The life on here is sometimes bothersome, and trust me, I get annoyed quite often, especially when I'm trying to go home to eat lunch at home, and it's 1 o'clock or 1:30, and I haven't eaten lunch, and I'm starting to get hangry, and you're like, man, I got some wings at home. I want to just eat them and be out of here. And we were supposed to do a half day today, but you just can't let that bug you,
Right.
And then I really like your idea of trying to leave not only just a long-lasting legacy, a positive legacy too.
Right.
Everybody wants a legacy, but the legacy that you want to leave is important because it won't always end up in history books, but people going from ship to ship and saying, hey, that FCA 1 Hall dude, that dude's pretty cool,
Hopefully.
and knowledgeable, and just a memorable person, and insightful, and that's the important part. And hey, you got me out of this situation, or helped me out with this.
Right.
That's super important. But you talked about your life before the Navy.
Yes.
You went to college. Where'd you go to college? What'd you study?
I went to 2 schools. I was actually a bounce back, so I went to a JUCO for a little while as well. But I went to Minot State and University of North Dakota. So,
Got it.
yeah, and I was in between. I was corporate fitness, business management. So I wanted to work for Nike, and I ended up being a fire controlman. That had nothing to do with it, but that was it. And through some mistakes, gosh knows I have many of those. That's the reason I went to so many schools. I thought I was going to be a professional athlete. Obviously, I'm not. So I had to learn some hard lessons about priorities and the actions I was doing.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but you've landed in a really great spot. So,
Not bad.
I mean, yeah, exactly. You're in a pretty damn good spot. But talking about your transition from college, and then you ended up as an FCA.
Mm-hmm.
What got you into the Navy? What were kind of what was the series of events that got you there?
Wow, this is such a story. A little backstory. Growing up, I had an interesting relationship with my mom, and she got into some difficulties for a while. So it's kind of on my own. As a little kid, I was on my own as a little 12 or 13-year-old. So I moved back. My mom was doing well, but when that situation happened, I moved back to probably not the best place to grow up. So unfortunately, being around that, to some degree, I don't know if it shapes your personality, but to some degree it shapes your behavior, especially being so impressionable. So I bumped my head, made a couple mistakes, did some stupid stuff, and I was generally a good kid. I was the same type of person, just doing kind of silly hood kid stuff. And when I went to college, I sort of thought I got away from it. But after I graduated, I went home and fell back in the same peer group and the same silly habits. And through a series of events, I realized that I've always been an introspective person, always. So I kind of had to take a look at myself, and so many of the things I was doing, I would justify as, it's not, no big deal, but I wasn't doing things that were gonna lead me to a positive future, and I was working, I had a pretty solid job. I was a grant writer, work corporate, but my time away from work, I didn't like the people I was around. Well, I won't say that, because I loved the people I was around, but I didn't like, some of the things that they would do, and being involved or even being in proximity with that was negative for me. So I got in a small a small disagreement with somebody, and it just escalated so much because all of the people involved, his family was, his family that I grew up with was, involved in some different things, and it became a pretty serious situation. And at that point, I had to really think, like, is this you? Like, how far are you willing to go? How far, is this you? And I just had to get out. Like, I was like, you know what, if I stay here, then it's not going to end up working out well for me. So I moved, and again, stupid habits, being a stupid little kid, I kind of, started doing silly stuff where I was. And I moved to Sacramento. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from Oakland. I grew up in Richmond, moved to Sacramento, and doing stupid stuff in Sacramento. And one day I had to really have a conversation with myself and say, hey, like, you're a college graduate. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, if you don't figure this out, then, because you can't be in the middle, so if you don't figure this out, then you need to, it's not going to work well. So I realized the peace that I had when I was in college. Like, I went to North Dakota. So I was in North Dakota, and it was just peaceful. It was quiet. Like, I wasn't dealing with all of the politics and all of the crazy things that I'm seeing day to day. And just even seeing some of that stuff is just not healthy for your mind, And coming back, I wasn't as mentally strong as I like to think I was, obviously, because negative, bad behavior, bad habits. So I just said, you know what, like, what can I do to remove myself from this? So my sister's father, like, we have different fathers, obviously, was a master sergeant. So, growing up, he was always a positive impact. Like, my father was never in my life. So he was kind of like my de facto father figure. So, he would always talk to me about it, and he'd be like, hey, like, go be an officer in the military. Like, go do that. And it didn't sink in until it kind of became a necessity. So at that point, to end up where I wanted to be, and not necessarily short-term financially, but just in general, I felt like this was the best thing. Like, go somewhere where I could just go, put my head down and work, because I played sports my whole life, so I don't mind working. And I could just dedicate myself and remove myself from all of the negativity, and here I am.
And what was it like? So you talked about, your, I guess, stepfather in a way, driving you towards wanting to be an officer. What guided you to walking into that recruiter office and just saying, I want to enlist?
What guided me? Nothing really. Like, once, again, I just went for it. Like, I'll attack it. I'll put my head down and go. And once I figured out what my objective was, to remove myself from, negative influences, that was one. Two, I wanted to have something that was going to be recession proof, and it was going to provide me with the ability to work if necessary. Hopefully it won't be, to work or to have skills to get a high-paying job following, and tied in with the government. And I'm really big into finance, so I'm not trusting some of the companies that I'm working with, as I'm seeing some of those go under. So once I found that objective, I'll attack it. Like, I was a linebacker, so I'm not the quarterback, I'm not the brains of the operation, but what I will do is see my objective and go attack it. So that was easy. Once I figured out like what goal I was trying to get to, it wasn't really like I didn't hesitate. He who hesitates is lost, right?
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, and you chose a great line to kind of get away from kind of the tough situation you were in. Not everybody chooses that choice and remains in that tough situation.
True.
Do you eventually want to go officer, or are you enjoying the enlisted life and want to, eventually make chief and all of that?
Do I want to go officer? When I joined the military, I started, like, my recruiter kind of kind of whammied me, and I have a non-essential degree and et cetera, so it was such a long wait that I just went in. But after being enlisted, I don't want to say this with any disrespect to you or anyone else, or pumping up the enlisted side or anything, just being candid. But being an officer, starting with that, being an officer, it seems like so much of your job are just things that would, like the part of the Navy that I hate, like so much administration, so much like that. And I don't necessarily, it doesn't move me to shape the Navy policy-wise, or like that doesn't move me. And if that was, and I get the impact that a good DIVO or a good department head could have on their division. I totally get that. But it always meant more to me to just deal with not so much the equipment, but deal with the people hands-on, like dealing with seeing my little troopers every day, whether that's positive or negative or whatever. Like that was a bigger mover for me than shaping the direction of the Navy more so. So in saying that, I don't know that I don't want to say that I couldn't do it. Like I don't think that I would be good at it, because I really feel like most things in the Navy and most things in life, if you just try hard to do it, I feel like you can accomplish it. Most things. Like people could be an astronaut if they wanted to. But in terms of day-to-day happiness and what I would actually want to do, I think without having been an officer, I think I would appreciate the enlisted side more. But no disrespect to any officers.
No, not at all. I mean, the officer side is truly for everyone. It's administration heavy, and not everybody enjoys the administration. There's
Right.
a lot of chiefs that enjoy the technical side and leading sailors, and that's totally fine. And I love that you are really about the sailors, and that's the most important thing. Why a lot of people respect you is you care about the people that work for you and work with you, and you want to help them out on the ground, and you want to stay on the technical side. So, I mean, moving over to that technical side of things, why did you choose to be an FCA?
Why did I choose? Oh my goodness. I'll give you the short version of this story too, because everything just seems convoluted and nutty. But I originally came in to be an MC, so I dipped in as an MC, and my ASVAB score was solid. So I think I kind of took everybody by surprise with how well I scored. So everybody was on board with me being an MC, because when I went in the office, I want to MC. But when everything came back, they were like, we gotta do something else. So they kind of pushed me in that direction, but simple answer, greed. So they offered me, they threw me a bonus incentive to go ACF, Advanced Electronics, and me being the silly person I am, prioritizing money over happiness. As far as I know, I don't know. It might be terrible to be an MC, and being an FCA might be the best thing in the world. I guess I don't really know, but I just took the money, and I thought, like, if I could take this and invest this, and by the time I retire, it'll be this, and that was the reason. So here I am.
Got it. So you enjoy your job though. And
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get to work on a lot of the Aegis control system, or the Aegis weapon system. Mm-hmm. And we can't get into too many specifics about what you work on, but what's some of the equipment that you own, and I mean, how many maintenance hours is it? I mean, it's pretty intensive, and it's a lot of computers and technology, I guess.
Right. What I own as a technician from my original job as a spy technician, I own the spy radar, so fire control radar, used for BMD, anti-air, pretty robust radar. And with that, we have our computer suite and our transmitter, so I get to dabble in, a little bit of all of that. But divisionally, the directors and the spy computer, or the suite computers, and the MCEs, and well, I guess nobody knows what that is, but other cabinets, we'll just say. So pretty much everything that's going to be related to our ability to track something in the air and potentially shoot at it.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the training like for that?
What is the training for that like? That's regular. Like a lot of people, something that I see is everybody wants people to think that what they do is so unique and special and difficult, and it's not.
It seems pretty difficult. You guys deal with a lot of high-tech, tough equipment. Whenever you guys talk to me about your technical stuff, it just confuses me.
It's not, because you have to understand that our technical background is built. If you would have went through the same thing as us, like they start us at the bottom and they tell us about electricity and then transistors and then PCBs and then computers and then, so before we even get to understanding how they work with each other, we already got all of that base knowledge. So we understand what radar collimation, we understand what all of those things are. So for someone who hasn't got that background, it's like trying to remember, like if I gave you a 9-digit number, you can count to 9, you get that. But trying to remember a 9-digit number without a reference is difficult, because you're just remembering 9 symbols. But if you understand what is that, 100 million? 126,321,000, like if you understand the number system, it'll make it so much easier, because you can associate that to 1 rather than 9 individual things. And going through training allows you to understand and to process information differently. So if you were to take, I don't believe that I'm any smarter than you or anyone. I think I'm a decently intelligent person, but anyone can do what I did if they had my background. Like it's years of school, don't get me wrong, but everything that we're learning is learnable, you know? So we just go through basic electronics, and it ramps up till we go to C school, then we learn our individual system, we learn our auxiliaries, and here we are. So me speaking to that is, it would be terrible if you would listen to me talk about my system and you'd be like, that thing, because that would suggest that I don't have a deep enough understanding and knowledge of it. Mm-hmm. But the majority of things that you would need to take away from that, and that's something that I'm not a huge fan of, because everybody wants to complicate their stuff. What you need to know about what I do is, you need to know the operation, how it works. And me talking to, say, FCA 1, any of the FCA 1s or something, should be different than how I'm talking to you about it. And ultimately, it's just the radar. Like, all radars are radars. All transmitters are transmitters. All computers are computers. They all work the same. So once you understand that and you've been through that, it's easy to talk about it. So it's not, no disrespect, and hopefully I'm not giving the secret away, but
no.
I don't believe that my job is so extremely difficult. Obviously, it's going to require rigor and time to learn things, especially for me, because I'm not coming from an electronics background. But it's just some school, like it's the same as going to learn history, the way I look at it.
Yeah, you've kind of figured out a way to train your mind to learn the patterns and understand your equipment through patterns.
Right.
That's very impressive, and also the fact that you guys deal with a lot of just confusing equipment very often. It's pretty awesome that you guys, the equipment that you work with, no one that listens to this, a lot of people probably will never see that equipment in their life, and it's extremely high value, and it's awesome. It's something to be proud of sometimes when you're like, hey, yeah, I'm working on something that, very small portion of the population ever works with. But, going from your work life to more of your personal life, I found out a little more today, because we were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a cook. You enjoy cooking.
Yes.
So where'd you pick up that hobby, and what other secret hobbies do you have?
Oh wow!
People don't know
Wow! Okay. As I said a little bit earlier, I after my little expedition by myself, I moved in with my grandma. So real classic, classic family, old people, and they had those old values. So my grandfather was used to having home cooked meals. He was just used to it. That was his life. And my grandma, that was her love language. And she just loved to cook. Like, she loved to cook for people. Anybody would come over, and she didn't have the most money, but she would just love to. Anyone who came over, she would always try to cook for them and cook what they wanted, and that was just kind of her thing. So me, being the little able-bodied child that I was, with an aging lady and a grandfather who wasn't playing around, and a family with high expectations of getting food when they came over, it kind of all worked. Like, it was a bonding thing for me and my grandma. So I still watch cooking shows today. Poor Paula Deen got kicked off, but all of them, Bobby, Pioneer, like the whole Food Network and History Channel, that's all I really do. So that was a good bonding thing for me and my grandma, but practically she just didn't have the capability to do that anymore. So my grandfather had expectations, like, I really need this food, like, this is what I do. So it kind of all worked out. So I started off just making cookies or whatever. I started baking, as I told you earlier. That's why I cook like I bake. And from there, I just, I started doing side dishes or making cornbread or making bread or whatever. And then as my grandma got older and older and older, I started getting trusted with more and more responsibility, to where I just started cooking everything. So that's it. That's my hobby. I have several hundred cookbooks. It's my thing. Strangely, like, people would not look at me and think that, but it's my thing. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, cooking's great. It's a window to the soul that not a lot of people know, because if you make something, like, really good,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody loves it, they're like, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
like, I need to try this recipe again. And it's also a way, like, I mean, you've seen, like, the movie Ratatouille, like, he blasts back in time to when he was a kid at the end because of that really awesome food. It can bring up memories, like home cooked meal, family recipe. Do you have any family recipes that you've kind of picked up over time?
Family recipes. Wow, my grandma was all over the place. She was pretty progressive in that way. So she was making Thai food and Filipino food, and she was all over the place. So what did I take from her that is her secret recipe? Well, nothing was a secret she shared, but man, that's a tough question. Wow, I should have did my homework on this before I came on. Maybe everybody loves her chicken and dumplings, so I guess that would be it. Even though that's not a very popular dish, strangely, but that was her specialty, and everybody asks me to make it now because I make it like my grandma.
Yeah.
Not my favorite thing either, but whatever.
Well, you talked about when we were talking earlier today, your repetition style.
Oh yeah.
The way you learn how to cook is by just doing it over and over again until you get it right, and then you can replicate it. Now, we talked about substitutions. I'm a big, for everybody at home, I'm a big substitutions guy, so if I don't have something in the refrigerator and I need it, I'll figure out a way to find something that's very similar, or like, the one thing that not a lot of people know about is actually, buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you just take
vinegar
some vinegar and some water and some milk, and there you go.
I have a buttermilk story for you too.
Really? Yeah.
Oh wow, you want it now? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the people involved will hear this. I might send it to them. But on USS Last, I had one of my favorite chiefs. It was her birthday. We're underway, so she wanted red velvet cake. You familiar with red velvet?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know the things that are gonna make it red and velvety is gonna be the little bubbles created by the acid working with the baking soda, right? Easy work. So in order to get that, in some recipes it'll call for a splash of vinegar, other will just be buttermilk. It all roughly works the same. So on a mighty fighting warship, like my previous ship was, They have a lot of missiles and a lot of bullets, but some of the cooking supplies that you wouldn't just ordinarily use, they don't have. Like buttermilk. Buttermilk's going to be spoiling all the time. It's, it's just not practical. What are they going to be making with buttermilk? They're not cooking biscuits every day. So they didn't have that. They didn't have high quality chocolate. They didn't have bunt. I did mine bunt, so they didn't have bunt pans. They had low quality butter. They had all of these things. No disrespect to their butter. Sorry, Chief. Sorry, CSC, one of my favorite chiefs as well. But all the components for this cake that she wanted, we didn't have. But she just knew. And I haven't done it on this ship because I don't have a house. But I used to bake every Saturday and just bring, like I made Krugerman last Saturday, or 2 weeks ago when I was on leave. But I would just find something I want to cook, and I don't really eat sweet, so I would just bake 50 cookies or bake cakes and just give it away. So she knew that, I was a baking guy, and she really wanted this, and I was committed. So fast forward, we finally pull into port. So I'm carrying around all of these cooking supplies. So now I have chocolate and heavy cream and all of these kooky things, bunt pans and cupcake pans and just a bunch of stuff. Not thinking that I'm in a Liberty port. So everybody's trying to go out and hang out. I'm walking around clinking around with bunt pans, looking like a crazy person at the club with some bunt pans. So fast forward, finally we make it to the ship, didn't get buttermilk, so made buttermilk. You could also use lemon juice. But, so made the buttermilk, everything, made my butter, made everything scratched, 100% scratch cake. I guess I didn't make the chocolate, but whatever, 100% scratch, got up 4 a.m, so it'll be fresh. I didn't want to have a day old cake, but I have watch, I'm in the Navy. So, finally got it, 4 a.m, made it. Hand beat it because we didn't have a mixer, the whole 9.5. So finally got the cake made. Cream cheese is another thing I forgot. So cream cheese frosting came out beautiful. I have pictures. I'll show you one of these days. And I went Saturday in the Chief's mess, thinking that I know that she has watch, so she'll go in there in the morning and see her cake, and be able to start her birthday off right. Boy, was I wrong. Those Chiefs are maniacs. So I sat it in there, and I would think it was simple enough to see a card underneath entire bundt cake covered in plastic that clearly they're not getting red velvet cakes every day, so it has to be for some purpose. I thought that would be enough. Boy, was I wrong. Bad decisions. I make those sometimes. And in the end, she only got a sliver piece of her cake. And this is in the time frame between, say, 7 in the morning and 7:45 in the morning. Like, that ate her whole birthday cake, and she only got one piece after that cake that I went through multiple days of all type of foolish actions in order to get, and she didn't really even get to eat it.
Hey, that's like the highest compliment, though. People like your bacon. That's like the highest compliment to you. To her, like, that's,
Yeah. You never want to be the person that brings something to the party and they don't eat it. But in that particular case, I would love if she would have just got to eat her own cake. Long story for a simple thing. I made a birthday cake underway, and she didn't get to eat it.
Yeah. Well, next time you just drop it. You can't like slip it underneath the door. You just gotta knock, knock, knock. Sorry, I know it's like 4 a.m, but here's your cake. Like, I don't want all the Chiefs to like go all vultures on it and just. I mean, they were probably eating that thing with their hands. They were probably like grabbing that thing with their hands. Like,
in my head canon, I think somebody like took a slice and was like, "I'm just gonna eat this," and then once you cut it, it's open game.
Oh yeah, everybody's like, "Oh, you got," because you'll be in the mess decks, you'll be at sea, and you'll like hear that they have cake, and they're like, "Ooh, they got cake," and then you walk in. Wait a second. But yeah, you're at sea, and you're like, "Oh yeah, cake." But do you have a favorite recipe to make?
Do I have a favorite recipe to make? There's a tough question. I really like to I like to challenge myself. So not really, because my favorite recipe is just seeing something like I just made croissants. That's unnecessarily difficult. So I don't know. I just want to be challenged. I think the thing that I get the most compliments on and this is so simple for all of the cookie things that I make. It's chocolate chip cookies, and I challenge you, the ship, your viewers, anybody who wants to battle me at chocolate chip cookies. We can get to it.
Chocolate chip cookie off? I mean,
let's make it happen.
I haven't tried yours, so I need to try your chocolate chip cookies. But I don't know. I agree with you. I like challenging myself, and I think that it's for everybody that listens too. I mean, it's a great thing to go out there, and I love Food Network. Alton Brown's my favorite.
I like Alton Brown.
Alton Brown's great. He's like a dad.
And I appreciate that he kind of digs into the cooking science a little bit more so than a lot of the other cooks. Like
he's like Bill Nye the Science Guy of Food Network. And he's very dad-like. He's got very dad energy. But I like Food Network recipes. America's Test Kitchen's really great.
I'm a test cook.
You are a test cook?
Yeah.
I love test cooking too. It's great. Like, test cooks are super important because like you find those recipes that test cooks like you have come up with, and you're like, damn, this is amazing. And it's like, how do people figure this thing out? So, I mean, that's impressive. But I challenge everybody at home too, just like you, just like me. I try to do at least one new recipe every week.
I like
because you gotta explore and you gotta try new things, and that's you don't know if you don't like that recipe until you try that recipe, and then maybe sometimes you're like, yeah, I really just don't want to do that recipe again. And it's not that it doesn't come out great, it's just, it's too challenging, too annoying, the ingredients are hard to get. But sometimes, like, the most challenging recipes are actually kind of the most fun recipes too. Like, I made this like chocolate tart for Thanksgiving a couple years back. 8 hours of work, like 72% dark chocolate, bittersweet dark chocolate, like melting it, making a glaze, getting like corn syrup to make that glaze. That you never really use corn syrup in regular type of cooking, but yeah, it came out excellent. It was a pain in the butt to make, but it felt rewarding and it was delicious too. It was amazing. But yeah, it's amazing bringing stuff to work and like having people really appreciate it. But earlier you were talking about your interest in sports too. So
yeah.
How tall are you?
I am 6'6.5".
Okay, how much you weigh? If you don't mind.
Oh, no problem. I'm somewhere around 275, 280.
Okay, so you're basically NFL linebacker caliber size. Like, do you think you could, sack a quarterback in the NFL?
Definitely.
Definitely?
Yeah.
So were you strictly a linebacker, or did you go to the end sometimes?
I played tight end when I was in high school. Oh, do you mean
like defensive end?
Defensive end. We were odd front, so it's sort of the same thing in a way. It's just like an odd front outside linebacker.
Yeah, you were the fourth linebacker off the edge.
Yeah, so I would just be a D end if it was an even front. So either way it would work. I prefer to come out of a 2-point stance, which is weird, but I could if I played in a different front, I would be a weak side D end.
Yeah, how do you create that momentum out of a 2-point stance?
It's don't false step, and I like that now you have to pay attention. If I'm exploding out of a 3-point stance, you really know the direction that I'm going to come, so you can just anchor yourself in that direction. From a 2-point stance, you have to, since I can go any direction, and since I'm so wide, I can generate momentum. I would sort of lose the point, or I would lose the benefit of coming out of the 3-point stance since I'm all the way at the 7. I'm so far away that me exploding for that first yard or half a yard or whatever, I wouldn't really get anything because before I made contact, I still have another yard. So I can build my momentum there. And I played a whole life of basketball. Like, I was a running back when I was a little kid. So, I was never not explosive. And I can just generate the same amount of force that I would get. Like, coming out of a 3-point stance, you lose all of your momentum in the first step. That's why you engaged in and go. But I'm building as I'm running. And you have to adjust, you got to account for me because I might attack either one of your shoulders. I might go to the flat. I might stunt. And it's easier for me to stunt as well. So, I don't know. It's just more comfortable.
It gives you a lot more options too.
Right.
Yeah, 3-point stance is pretty simple. Like you're pretty much going to be slamming heads at the offensive lineman.
Right.
That's why those nose tackles usually do it. But I mean, this is a great example for everybody at home, like just the amount of knowledge that you have about the game, but also, I mean, I really enjoy talking shop with you on the game, because you have a really, not only just the technical side of things, but you also like talking about formations and how the game is developing and new athletes. Like, I mean, you know that I went to Penn State, so seeing Micah Parsons play and some of those really fast, just hybrid linebackers coming into the league, we really enjoy talking about that. Have you ever thought about a career in coaching after the Navy?
Yes, I did. And I don't think that, like with coaching, I think I would want to either be on the field or be in the film room. But I don't know that I would want to do both and recruit. I think that would just be too many moving parts. Like, I would want to be, I could see myself being like a quality control guy, or, you know, or an analyst type person. But coaches, they do so much stuff these days. You know, I don't want to be on the phone recruiting all the time, and then I got to go to practice, then I got to crunch film, then I just want to do one single thing and just try to master that. And the process to get there, I didn't want to be a grad assistant for 2 years and then go somewhere and be an assistant tight end coach for 2 years, and then, you know, I didn't want to travel down that path. It seemed like it'd be fun to some degree, but I wanted a real life. And that's an interesting life.
Yeah, it's a long road to the top too,
Right.
and that's like it's the toughest thing, because I mean, you see coaches like Sean McVay and some of the younger guys, like
They're geniuses.
it's amazing. They're like 35. It's insane. But you talk about your college career and all of that. What was it like being a college athlete? How do you feel about college sports moving? I mean, like today we're recording, and I mean, basically college football is kind of the entire landscape of college football basically exploded today.
Semi-pro,
But yeah, pretty much semi-pro now. But I mean, how do you feel about your time? What was it like being a college athlete back when you played? How do you feel about college athletes these days, especially them with NIL? And then, I mean, how do you feel about this whole development into basically semi-pro?
All right, first, fight on USC Trojans, move to the big, and hopefully Oregon and UW won't follow. I think they are. Just need to get that out the way. So my experience as a college athlete, it was really it was a good experience. It's not what I thought it would be. Like, I kind of thought I would just go, and I don't know. In my mind, it was like being a entertainer or something, being a rock star, and I was just gonna be hanging out and being a rock star, and then, I don't know, like, practice never really factored into what was gonna be going on. So I just thought it would be games. But realistically, it's kind of similar to the Navy in that your whole day is programmed. So they're paying you, and they're gonna get their money's worth. So all day, you know, you're gonna get up in the morning, go to weights, go to your classes, go to meetings. They control what you eat, when you study. Like, your whole life is under control, and that's something I didn't expect, because in high school it wasn't anything like that. But it was good. Like, being under that rigor and experiencing some of that really probably helped me in the military as well. But it was a great time. Like, I got to travel around. I got to meet a bunch of people. And me coming from, I'm from California, so it's fairly diverse. But that said, it was a culture shock going to North Dakota. So I think that helped me grow as a person, and being able to relate and deal with people from different backgrounds. And so I love the experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. School, I guess I should factor that in. It was kind of a cheat code with that as well. Because if I was to be mad at a college athlete, if I wasn't one, I wouldn't be mad about them getting the free tuition. I would be mad about them getting the academic support. Because I had a note taker. I had, I don't know how, no disrespect to anyone who has, but how do people fail if you're a college athlete? Like, you have everything is set up. Like, no one has ever taken a test. No one has ever wrote a paper for me. But any issues that I had, I could have a tutor and a note taker for every single class if I needed it. So I guess it was college on easy mode to some degree. So that was my feeling on that. I loved it, and I would do it again, and hopefully I have children here soon, and they can go do the same thing. Now, for NIL, that's I appreciate, because I understand the financials of college sports, or the college revenue sports at least. So, you know, many of them are generating millions of dollars, and their coaches, in some cases, are making millions of dollars. So I think that in fairness to the amount that's being generated by the players, they should be able to monetize that. The issue that I have is it's to some degree became predatory in several different ways. One, the college athletes, I wish NIL was structured like this. You can benefit from your name, image, and likeness, but you're still an 18-year-old child, and we don't want people that might not have the best interests, you know, taking control of this. But you are probably not prepared to do it yourself. So I wish they would just take all of the money that they can make, and then whatever percentage of it, take that away and then put it somewhere. Like if you're just gonna put it in some account or something interest bearing, and let them have access to that following their playing career. And that'll do two things. One, not having the immediate gratification of having, say, $75,000, let's say, as a high school athlete, 17-year-old, it's gonna allow you to make more informed decisions about what you're gonna do with your future. Like, I know that if this school is gonna give me $100,000, let's say, and not counting interest or whatever, when I graduate, since it's not immediate and it's not, that I don't get that gratification, that taste right now, then I can think about the school that I'm going to choose a little bit more objectively. So I think that would help, and it would benefit the student, because, man, you gave me $100,000, and I'm not saying that college athletes didn't used to, we were taken care of in our ways as well, but if somebody gave me $100,000 as a 17-year-old college freshman, I would have just bought a Corvette or something. And then now, how did that really benefit me as a person? So that's sort of how I feel. I'm in the middle. I do think that they should be able to get their money, but the way that we're going about it and the regulation about it, like, there needs to be an even playing field, have, this is a standard, or really actually have it be NIL. Like, a company has to benefit from your name, image, or likeness. So if you're going to provide value to that company, they should be able to pay you for that, and not have it be a recruiting tool. Right. Obviously, larger schools are going to have an advantage because they're going to be tied to other companies or whatnot. But just having a booster, I'll kick you $250,000 when I'm spitting. Then, like, what are we doing here? You might as well just make it an NFL minor league.
Right. Yeah. It's essentially exactly what you're saying, semi-pro. Mm-hmm. And I mean, people were offering under the table back in the day, but it's more overt now. But I agree with you. It's all about, if I was 17 or 18, what would I want to do with that money? I don't know. Definitely want to spend a little bit of it properly, and especially for those guys that might not have like a lot of financial management support in their lives, they're not getting that support.
Right.
So, I think you bring up a great point. But wrapping it up.
Okay.
Last question.
Send it.
I know that you probably had aspirations to make the league.
Okay.
If you had made the league, who would you have wanted to be your first sack?
Oh, wow. There is a great question. Man, if you came up with that on the spot, 10 out of 10. Who do I hate the most in the NFL? Well, I'm a Raiders fan, so
even though they left, I know that hits hard.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship there. But I guess whoever the current starting quarterback, who do I hate more? I hate the Broncos. I guess I don't know. I hate
Russell Wilson.
Yeah, Russell Wilson would work.
He's pretty annoying.
No, I'm gonna say whoever the current Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, Dak Prescott.
Is. Yeah, or whoever it was, at that when I was doing it.
Probably Tony Romo back.
Yeah, Tony Romo. Yeah, probably Tony Romo. Just to upset the world. Like I don't, some little part of me wants to make everybody mad more so than I just want to celebrate myself. And I think the most people would be angry about me sacking Tony Romo.
Oh yeah, the star carries a lot of weight around the world. Jerry Boy is a pretty wealthy dude.
That guy
definitely has high value. But hey, I mean, we could talk all day about sports. I think we'd probably bore the listeners because this is not only just a Navy podcast, but also, I really love your passion for sports and for cooking, and mainly for being just a great all-around person and leader. And I mean, you're just doing an excellent job. So I really appreciate you being on the BODAR Blast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for your time. Listeners, thank you.
And thank you, FCA 1 Hall, for coming on to the podcast. It was a pleasure having you on. I told you right after the interview, I mean, we could have gone for 2 hours. I have so many questions for you, and like I said, Renaissance man of a person, somebody that could easily crush my spine with just a simple tackle, and just a gentle giant of a person. So thank you for coming on to the podcast. But getting to a segment of the podcast before we close out, Decatur is going into new horizons. So a lot of you are aware we just took a leave period for household goods change as we are preparing for homeport shift over to Hawaii. So it has been an excellent 3 years, at least for me personally, here in San Diego. To all the families out there that are going through this change, it's only temporary. We will be out there very soon and together again. Mahalo, Hawaii. We are very excited. I'll at least have to learn how to pronounce that correctly. But it's very exciting going to Pearl Harbor, getting to see Hawaii, and for a lot of the crew, they're going to be living there long term and knowing that you live in Hawaii. So we're very excited to go over there. Just wanted to say a word as well about Maui. We are all devastated about what's going on in Maui, and we about to move to the state of Hawaii. We are all dedicated to the state of Hawaii and our new home. So we have a lot of thoughts and prayers out for those people out there, and hopefully we can do as much to support them as possible. So we are standing with Maui, especially as Hawaii will be our new home, and so hopefully things will slowly improve over there. Nature, unfortunately, takes its course, and unfortunately it's the destructive course sometimes, but everything will regrow and rebuild, and that's the circle of, I hate to say the circle of life, but the circle of nature, and the cycle, and how things are die and then are reborn, and hopefully Maui will eventually sprout back up very soon. So we are very excited to move to our new community of Hawaii, and next time I talk to you, it'll probably be from there. So thank you for tuning in to the BODAR Blast. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you next time. I'm Lt.j.g Daniel Ehrlich. I'm out.